The Smithsonian Faculty Fellowship Program represents a rewarding academic professional development opportunity for faculty at Montgomery College. The fellowships are a product of a unique collaboration between Montgomery College and the Smithsonian Center for Learning and Digital Access. It's the first of its kind between the Smithsonian Institution and a community college.
Cyrus MacFoy earned his BS degree in biochemistry from Royal Holloway College and an MS in environmental science and a PhD in ecological biochemistry from the Imperial College of Science, Technology and Medicine. He taught at the University of London, Westminster University, and Richmond College in the UK, University of Sierra Leone, and in the United States, the American University, Johns Hopkins University, Trinity College, the University of Maryland, and at Montgomery College, where he has mentored several students for Beacon research competitions. Cyrus also enjoys research, consultancy, and scientific writing.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and especially my students. I see quite a few of you are here today. Welcome, and I'm pleased that you were able to make it. I might think of giving you some extra credit, points for coming. As a biologist, I'd always been intrigued by the Columbian exchange. The fact that plants, animal species, and diseases were taken from one part of the world to another part of the world, from the old to the new, and from the new to the old. And the other thing that always intrigued me, the fact that people were actually taken from the old world to the new world. But what many people probably don't know is that after the abolition of slavery, some were taken back to the old world. So it's not necessarily a unidirectional flow of people. It's a dual flow of people, but the second flow took place long after the first flow, to the extent that Freetown in Sierra Leone was created as a place where the freed slaves were taken back. So it's a two-way traffic for people as well as plants, as well as diseases, as well as animal species and ideas as well. When I saw the advert, and it was about the Columbian exchange, I said, wow, because I've always been interested in the Columbian exchange. There you are right in front of me. I said, I'm going to give this a go. I gave it a shot, and luckily I got it. And for 2 semesters now, I've been interacting with some very, very nice people, the organizers, Mimi and Sarah and Manjula, and my colleagues as well. And we had a very good time, collaborative work. We helped each other, we learned from each other, and I think that form of collaboration must inevitably continue. The project was conducted with my General Biology 101 students. These are non-majors in general biology. We tend to look at them as they don't want to be in your class, but they've got to be, because they inevitably need a science with a lab. And since they don't like chemistry, they don't like physics because of the maths, they've got no other option but biology. So those are the kinds of students we get in that class. And so it's my task, and I coordinate the Bio 101 as well there, to try and change the mentality over a 15-week period, so that at the end of the 15-week, they do like biology. Formidable task, I must say. So that class, like I said, it's a general biology class, and so we cover all topics in biology, starting from microorganisms to ecology to genetics to cloning, and the general biology class. One of the things that we covered, which I think is relevant to this fellowship, is biodiversity utilization and conservation. The fact that there's a wide variety of plant and animal species the world over, and some of them are useful to us, mankind, and we do exploit some of them. In that course, we developed a lab also in which they extract dyes from natural dyes from plants. And also there is a seminar course in which the students choose a useful plant, preferably from the country of origin, and research that plant and give a PowerPoint presentation. So when this fellowship arose, I said, wow, I'm going to link the two together. So I was looking, how can I link that course with the Smithsonian Fellowship? So I tried my best to include it in such a way that I would embellish some of that seminar course with a museum experience. So that was my goal. And I must say at this stage that, especially the new guys coming in, your goals would change. It would evolve. Right. Some of what went into your proposal would not be what you will be presenting here next year. We also use this to internationalize the curriculum, the fact that there are genetic diseases that are prevalent in certain cultures, in certain countries, like sickle cell anemia, we know is prevalent in the African American or people from African descent. Cystic fibrosis is prevalent in Caucasians, and multiple sclerosis, and not multiple sclerosis, thalassemia is very prevalent in Mediterranean region. So there's that aspect in that course as well, internationalizing the curriculum. So I just thought this fits very well with that class, much more than it would fit with my anatomy and physiology class. So we just went for it as a result of that. It starts with an introductory lecture by me on the Columbian exchange to elicit some form of interest in the students. And like I said before, we include a good definition of the Columbian exchange, which is a two-way flow of goods, ideas, plants, animals, species as well. And the fact that all of this was as a result of Christopher Columbus going to the Americas in 1842. Look at the Columbian exchange that I was talking about. Look at some of the stuff that are going to the New World and others coming back to the Old World. That's what's shown in that slide. You could notice that things like potatoes, tomatoes, beans, and syphilis were going from the New World to the Old World, and others things like malaria and yellow fever and rice and sugar were going in the reverse direction. The other thing that I thought was necessary is, do the students have an idea of how to do research? So I invited a librarian from the Takoma Park Library to come to my lab, actually, and give them a short talk on how to utilize the library facilities to do research. And this was in preparation of their own research, and that's the librarian giving a talk, not a good shot. And this is the students listening, and I see one very enthusiastic student there. And so then the students did a background research now, which sort of recapitulated from previous lectures on biodiversity and similar topics, and certain questions which I think were necessary before we make that trip. For example, what are the three domains? What are the six kingdoms? What are plants? How are they different from other organisms? What is their place in the evolution of life on Earth? How are they different from other kingdoms in biology? For example, how are they different from Homo sapiens? And how are they similar? How are plants useful to mankind? So I just thought giving them this question would sort of elicit that kind of interest in what we're about to face when we get to the museum itself. The other thing that I thought was necessary is that how do plants defend themselves from pathogens, from pests, and from herbivores? And the mechanism by which they do that, how can mankind exploit that? Or are we already exploiting those mechanisms? And other questions that were raised were, can they identify some of the plants that were involved in the Columbian exchange? And what were those plants? Well, which ones arrived after Christopher Columbus and which ones were there before? So essentially, which ones are indigenous and which ones were introduced? So all of this is preparation to go on the trip. From that, we then had the discussion, and these are some of the results of that discussion, that there is a wide diversity of plants throughout the world with multifarious uses. There's plethora of plant species that do exist, have a variety of uses. Some are used for medicines, others are used for dyes, fiber, paper, etc., etc. Other uses, which are less tangible, non-utilitarian kind of uses, will be like aesthetic values. Flowers and deers in woods are beautiful. I'm sure you'll agree with me. They are beautiful. Look out. and other symbolic values. For example, the clove is a symbol of peace, butterfly, a symbol of transformation, and naturalistic value, that this sense of awe that you gain, this fascination that you gain when you understand nature's complexity and diversity. Now, the requirements that all 24 of my students are required to tour 2 museums, and these are the 2 museums that they're required to explore. And like I said before, my project idea I really modified in various ways throughout this encounter with my colleagues and with and the museum staff as well. So before the visit, the students visited various websites, and these are some of the websites that they visited. And they're required to prepare themselves, because this is a website that tells you about useful plants in the Smithsonian, which ones are medicinal, which ones are not. They also watched a YouTube video on medicinal plants in the Columbian exchange, and we had a class discussion, and they also chose a medicinal plant of interest to them. And most of them ended up by choosing from a list that was provided by the horticulturist at the museum, and who then took us on a tour of the gardens, and we'll go around and identify the plant species and study them as we went along, took photographs as well of them, and they would look at the color, the smell, the shape, the size, the feel of the plant. And throughout, we were having a general discussion on useful plants. And the horticulturist was very, very useful as well. And there you are, the horticulturist giving a short talk on one of the plants. Another one called the pawpaw tree was also investigated with one of the students. Another one called Black-Eyed Susan was that of another student, the holly, and the American elm tree, then the American witch hazel. So these were just examples of some of the plants which were chosen by these individual students and were studied in great detail on site, on the field, and thereafter in the classroom as well. So the discussion that ensued as we went back to class was on biodiversity, its benefits to mankind, and how deforestation is affecting this biodiversity, and how mankind is affecting them using sort of anthropogenic factors that are affecting biodiversity, and the need for conservation, and how deforestation is affecting climate change as well. And the above information were used to write a report and to make a PowerPoint presentation. The second part of the project, like I said, it was a 3-part project. The second part of the project was at the Native American Museum, the section to do with food, and they were given certain questions which would elicit their thinking, and including how the museum visit could be made better and more productive, and how they actually enjoy the museum visit. These are some of the questions. Okay, before that, these are some of the food areas that they saw and took notes of. Next, and the utensils and Indian foods, a variety of food. And these are some of the questions that were asked, again, to jog their memories, to elicit thinking, to get them to develop their critical thinking skills. They're supposed to look at the image. What do you see? Can you tell what era that was? How were food prepared, stored, eaten at home, eaten in communal feasts? What utensils were used? And all of this were necessary for them writing the report as well. Other questions that they were supposed to answer were, what about the taste, the feeling? Does it relate to any that you had before? And one important question which some of them answered very, very well: if you were to ask the Indians then about anything, what would it be? And what do you wonder about your exhibit? What will it feel like if you were around then? And they would describe their exhibit and relate that to the Columbian exchange as well. So further questions that were asked were these ones. And the third part of the visit was at the Natural History Museum, where they were supposed to choose one exhibit, a particular exhibit of their choice, and investigate and study that exhibit and write a report. Some of them chose mammals, others chose evolution, butterflies, human evolution, and oceans. They took photographs and took notes, and eventually wrote a report on that. That's at the Natural History Museum. And these are some of the students in the mammal section. Another one in how humans change the world, and mammal section as well. That was a mammal section as well. And this is the entrance to the museum. And the conclusion is that the students use these objects as thinking devices. They were able to inspire them. They were able to stimulate their learning. And I believe that these objects bring about higher order learning and questions. It developed their capability to work in groups. It developed their field work skills, critical thinking. And because it was also participatory, I thought it was a fantastic experience for the students and for myself. I think it's a very worthwhile endeavor, and I would tell any of my colleagues to go on this program. It was a unique experience that I've never had before in my several years in this profession. And I want to thank the organizers once more time, Mimi and Sarah and my colleagues. Thank you very much.